How are you doing today? My name is Adderson, and I help people with their horses. I help them to get the relationship they're looking for with their horse, and I help them to get results too, with not one without the other. I have a question for you first of all, and that is it easier for our horses to learn a language like English, a human-generated language? Or is it easier for us to see the world through our horse's senses? And while you're doing that, also, I want to tell you just what happened to me the other day. One of my horses was way out in the field, like 2 kilometers away. So it was a beautiful sunny day, a spring day. There were dandelions sprouting up everywhere, yellow flowers, and it was just gorgeous. There were bees out and it was warm with a fresh coolness to it. And so I walked all that way to the end of the 30-acre field to get my horse. And this is a 30-year-old horse that I have, and I've had her since she was 2. So I got to the end of the field, and I put the halter on her, and I decided, yeah, okay, that is a long way. Why don't I just jump on her back? So I jumped on her back with the halter. I was bareback, and I started to head back towards where she needed to get her feet trimmed. And as I was going, I was considering a little bit about, well, okay, I haven't been on her back for probably 8 years, a long time, but I used to ride this mare daily, so we know each other really well. So I was concerned about her back with having my weight on her back. I don't weigh much, but still on her back. She's 30 years old, and I was concerned for her. I assessed the situation, and we were to head down a hill, and so I thought, okay, I won't go straight down the hill because that will put more pressure on her withers and her back. Instead, I'll traverse across the hill. So I decided to do that, and I led her across the hill. We got to the bottom of the hill, and our next step was to go straight for the gate. And so I directed her to go straight to the gate. It was like, no, we're not going there. I said, well, yeah, this is where we're going straight to the gate. Whereas previously, she had not had a problem with going where I had asked her to go. I said to myself, and so I said, okay, then we won't go that way. What way do you want to go? I gave her the rein, the lead of the halter, and I said, take me which way you want to go. So then I said to my horse, her name is Dawn, okay, you go where you want to go. Let's just see. Let's just experiment. What she did was she walked perpendicular to the gate, right? So the gate was that way. She walked that way. She walked not at all towards the gate. I just let her do that. I let her go, and we walked all the way to the fence line. She then turned right, and she headed in the direction towards the gate where it was a roundabout. It's like, okay, you want to do this, so I don't know why you're doing this right now, but this is what we're doing, and it's fine. Everything's going well. She was doing that because over on that place beside the fence line, there were no dandelions. There were no yellow flowers, therefore there were no bees. On my walk to get her, there were lots of bees. In fact, I became a little bit uncomfortable because of the number of bees that started buzzing around. So she found the place that she knew so well, and I didn't, that the place to get to the gate. She knew that my goal was to get to the gate, but she was going to go where there were no dandelions, where there were no bees, which meant that she wouldn't get stung, which then meant, and this probably wasn't in her mind, but who knows, that I wouldn't get bucked off if she got stung in the belly or something. So that is an example of actually trusting in the wisdom of my horse. So it wasn't when I started out, it wasn't doing what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. Even though she knew what I wanted, it wasn't exactly what I had planned and what I had in mind. But she had something else in her mind, and so I trusted in her wisdom, and I let her take me to the gate. She then walked me down the fence line where there were no dandelions. I didn't direct her anywhere. She walked straight to the gate. She stopped by the gate, and she waited for me to open the gate. Years back when I realized that I could listen so much more deeply to my horse than I had been, that's when my results started to come faster. And that's when things started to be a lot easier. So that story of walking through the dandelions or not is an example of how we can choose to trust the wisdom of our horse or not. I could have chosen not to, but I saw the opportunity there and I chose to do it. So let's get back to my question at the beginning here. And that was, is it easier for us, for horses, our horses, to learn a language, or is it easier for us to learn the world or to see the world through our horses' senses? The answer is, of course, that it's easier for us to see the world through our horses' senses. It may not be easy. Of course, it's not easy to do, but it's easier than the comparison, which is if we flip it, for our horses to learn a language that we are used to communicating. So those are the two things I wanted to talk to you about today, because when I teach clinics, I ask my students that very frequently, because they get frustrated with sometimes having to understand exactly the horse's perspective. When we don't understand our horse's perspective as best as is possible at our time and our place where we are right now, if we don't do that, then that can get very frustrating. Then we start to do things like blame our horses or make excuses or lie or defend, any of those things that we do because we're not taking the time to actually see our horse's perspective. Seeing your horse's perspective, trusting in the wisdom of your horse, taking the time to actually make that choice. And also, one other thing that I found that really changed things for me and contributes to how we listen much more deeply to our horses is that I have the general belief that horses are just trying to get along with us and in our human world. We have domesticated them. They have evolved to just get along with us and in our human world. And if we see that along with their perspective on the world around them, then we're not so quick to be impatient with them or not so quick to blame them. And the other day I was speaking to someone. She had an issue with her mare, and she said to me, I don't know what's happening with my mare. She's always choosing to go faster. I went through with her my problem-solving process. And it's a process where we, look at all the options and understand what I just was mentioning to you, the horse's perspective, and take into consideration the wisdom of the horse and listen very deeply. And so I took her through this process and went through the pieces, and she kept saying, she always just wants to canter. Well, does she want to canter on the line only or ridden? No, she always just wants to canter, even on the line and ridden, right? We went through this whole process of understanding the horse's perspective. And it came down to, in the end, that her horse was probably in pain. When she went up to get her horse out of the pasture, there was not a problem. But when she started to do work with her horse on the line or riding, then she did not have the horse that she usually had. So the issue was that the horse was in pain. So then I referred her to a local holistic veterinarian in our area, and she got some veterinary help. My point is here that we can do this process ourselves. We can figure out this problem-solving process ourselves by going through and understanding our horse's perspective on things, listening much more deeply, and trusting in the wisdom of our horses. Because our horses have so much wisdom. Sometimes I think, what do our horses think of us? Right? Sometimes I've heard people say, or we can say, horses are so stupid, right? They poop where they eat or whatever. But if you compare and contrast that, what do our horses think of us? Right? What did my mare think of me when she thought I was going to lead her through the dandelions and the bees the other day? That's a different perspective on things. If this is interesting to you and you know of somebody that you'd like to share this with, these are my ideas and the way that I help people with their horses, help them get better bonds, better relationships, and superb results also along the way. Then feel free to share this with anybody you think could benefit. Thanks so much for being here. That's a few of you, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye for now.